In this video we're going to create our first form, and I'm going to do so obviously within the interface because this is the user interface, or the human computer interface, or better termed as the HCI. I'm going to double click on the interface here, and I can now see my link to my tables and my query. The form we're going to create is going to be based upon the learner, which is this top part of the manual form that we got at the very beginning. So we're going to recreate this part of the data, and this is again where the manual form becomes important. People who work in Andy Brake's driving school already know this form. They know the whole form as it is, and they understand this top section. Therefore, if I'm going to create them a new system, shouldn't deviate, unless there's a really important reason for it. I really shouldn't deviate from the layout they're used to. So I'm going to use this as our template. I'm going to select the TBL Learner because that's where all the fields are from that top section, and I'm going to go to Create. There are three ways that I feel you should use to create forms. There are a number of buttons for forms, but there are three ways of creating a form. One is to follow the form wizard. If I click on form wizard, this pops up. Since I selected TBL Learner, that's the table that's appeared at the top here. But I can always change that to a different table if I wish to. But I'm going to keep on that one. The fields below that are the fields from that table. So if I change this to instructor, I can see the fields from instructor. But I do want TBL Learner. I could go through selecting certain fields, but to be honest, the quick and easy way is to take them all across and then tidy it up once I come to do my own work on the form. I'm going to click Next, and now I'm offered the layout of the form. Columnar is used for one record alteration, so if I'm going to change or view or do whatever to one record, it's columnar. Tabular allows me to enter one or more records at the same time, and that's very useful for certain types of purposes. For example, the top part of this form is a columnar form, but the bottom part is tabular. At the top I can enter one student at any one time. If I wanted to enter someone else's detail into there, I'd have to have another form. At the bottom I can enter in lessons for that student, and I can enter one or more lessons at the same time as I'm going through that. So I would need to choose. Datasheet looks like a table, and to be honest I would avoid those like the plague. Justified is a feature introduced by Microsoft that tries to lay it out in an attractive fashion. To be honest, don't get involved in that. Treat the wizard as it should be, which can build the basics for you, and then you take over. So we go to columnar, go Next. All I've got to do here is change this to from FRM for form, so I've replaced TBL because it's not a table, it's a form. And I'm going to open the form to view or enter information. Normally I'd modify the form's design because I know that I would need to change things around, but let's just have a look what the form looks like. Click on Finish, and there's the form. So you can see that it's already tried to lay it out. It's used all the labels I used in my tables, and it's also pulled all the fields in using the lengths that I've already given it. I'm going to then go into Design View, and in Design View I can grab hold of the edge of a form, make it longer, grab the bottom of a form, make it longer. Be aware that this deals with the form header, whilst this part's the detail. There is even a footer, you can't see it at the moment, but if I click at the bottom of the line pull down, I can create a footer for my forms as well. I can grab hold of a field and drag it, and as I do so, the label for that field will follow. If I don't want that to follow, then either of these two grey boxes are fine. Click and drag, and that will move them separately to each other. Learner ID is the primary key. It's an auto number. No one's ever going to need it. No one's ever going to need to see it. It's a system variable that I'm going to be using, so I don't care. I don't want anyone to see that, so I'm going to simply delete that. I would now go through and tidy this up and move things around and lay them out as they were on the original form. But we'll look at that in the context for something else. What I'm going to do at the moment is I'm going to save this form. I'm then going to close down these here, and then I'm going to simply delete the form altogether. That's because I want to create the form again, but I want to create it in the second way. The second way does require that I must select the correct form. I've then got a form button. If I haven't selected a form, then it would struggle to have this highlighted. But if I click TBL Learner and click on that, Access goes off and creates me the form for myself. It's not used any of the features of the tables. You can see that though it's tried to pull it has pulled in the labels, it hasn't adjusted sizes or anything else. I'm going to go to Design View, and I'm going to take the Learner ID and I'm going to adjust its size. Now have a look at all of the others. If you notice, they're all the same length. If I now drag that in, they are all altering alongside, and that's because of this dashed line that runs around side. This is a feature that Microsoft introduced 2007, and it really is a frustrating feature. I have no idea why you'd want to treat all the fields at the same time. To get rid of that, simply do Control A, go to Arrange and click Remove Layout. You can now adjust these individually as much as you like without any concern. You're basically where we were with the previous system. Again, I don't want Learner ID, so I will delete that, and then I can move things into position and adjust things as I see fit. I'm just going to save this. I'm going to remove the front end. So it again says From, click on OK, and it's saved the form, and I can close this down. I'm going to delete this again because I want to show you the third way. The third way is to use this button here, Form Design. Notice I'm not going to worry about clicking on anything. I'm simply going to click on Form Design and I'll get a blank form up. I'm then going to use something that we will use quite a lot of over the next few videos, and that's this property sheet. I'm going to click on the property sheet and I can see all of these properties, things that I can alter, but what do they relate to? Well, the answer is they relate to this whole form. And how do I know that? Because of this little black square at the top of the two rulers. At the intersection of the two rulers, there's this little black square, and these properties therefore are for the whole of the form. If I click on Detail, then we notice the black square is gone, and I can also see that all the properties have changed, and these are all to do with the detail. That's this white part of the form. I'm going to click back on there so I can see the whole form. At the moment, my form is called an unbound form. This means it's not connected to any of my tables, and I can prove that by clicking on Add Existing Fields. This replaces the property sheet window, but you can see that there's nothing here. That's because my form is unbound. It means it's not connected to any table or query. If I go back to the property sheet window, then I want to connect this to my learner. And it's this record source. It's at the top of all or at the top of data. And all you have to do is select TBL Learner. Now when you select TBL Learner, you have now bound this form to that table. And I know that because if I click on Add Existing, I'll get these. If you get an error message and it doesn't allow you to show these even though you have selected record source, then be aware it's because your links have failed between your tables, your interface and your data. So all you've got to do in this case is click on all four of these, right click, Linked Table Manager. Select all, always prompt, click on OK and find your data database. You'll then find that your Add Existing does work without any problems at all. The nice thing here is I don't need to delete the learner ID because I only need to include the parts I actually want in there. I can pull these into position and then tidy up my form as I see fit. As we said, these are connected. That means that if I try to take this too far to the side, it won't let me. It's like hitting a brick wall because the label is hitting the side there. And this is where this properties can come really into its own. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select this and I'm going to go to Property Sheet. So I've clicked on there, and at the moment I'm going to go to Format. So I've got a number of things I can see. I've got the caption, so it says first name. That's fine, that's come from the table. But I can define its width. Now I'm going to define its width actually as 2.8 centimeters. I don't need to put the centimeters because Access understands it's centimeters, and I'm going to push the Tab key. That's made this 2.8 centimeters. Now notice, Access has adjusted this. This is one of those fun things with Access. You think it's going to be 2.8. It says, no, I think it's going to be 2.801. We can make further adjustments, but let's have a look at the next thing. I'm not going to worry about the height. The height's fine. But I have top. Now, what does it mean by top? Well, that's the distance down from this top line. It's saying 0.399. I could alter that to 0.4 if I wanted to, and it will take that one. These lines, the vertical and horizontal lines, are exactly 1 centimeter. So I now can work out where I want everything to be balanced. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the 3 centimeter marker as the end of my labels. So I now know that if my label is 2.8 and I want it to be 3, then the distance from the left hand side must be the remaining distance, 0.2. Since 0.2 and 2.8 will make the 3 centimeters I'm interested in, and we can see that runs smoothly up to there. Now I did Shift Tab to move backwards, and I'm just going to see if it can take the 2.8, but it doesn't, it still varies it. But let's be honest, 0.001 is not a major issue. I'm going to take my Str first name, and I'm going to do a very same thing. Well, in this case, it's centimeters 3. I'm not going to alter its height, its top. I'm just going to alter that to 0.4, so it's at the same point as the other one. But left is 3.2. And you can become quite fussy with how these things are laid out and how they're presented. But that's the really nice thing. You can do that in all the views, but if you focus on getting one correct, just making sure that everything is in position before moving on to your Add Existing, grabbing the next one and pulling that in. Now I notice if I look at the form that it's Nicola Long, so what I need to do in this case is go back, delete the label, and I can pull that one into position. All I'm going to do then is do property, and I just want to make sure that that's set to 0.4. I'm not going to worry about any other distances because that should be in line with the other one. If I view this, I can see that Mickey Mouse is already up there, so I can list how I want that. If I want first name, last name, I could have had first name, last name. It's not a major problem. But obviously now, because I've done that, I may want to change that to name. I like to put colons there, and equally I like to use the standard word processing features that you have, which should be right aligned, so that when I run my form, the label is nicely against the part there. Okay, so that's one way of doing this. That creates a basic form. We will alter this because I don't think that's a particularly nice way of working, and I think we can actually select data to edit that data as we need to. That's how to create a basic bound form, and these are also termed bound fields. And there's a reason why you know they're bound fields, because they tell you what they're bound to. The field here, this box, is bound to the field in the table str underscore first underscore name. So I now know this is a bound field in a bound form. Again, looking at the record source. If I click on there, I can see the control source is certainly that field. So this field is bound to the table, and the form is bound to the whole of the table. Hopefully that's been helpful. We will then look at unbound forms later on.